I've been driving long-haul freight across the country for over 12 years now. East to west, border to border. I've heard the stories. Weird encounters on empty roads, shadowy figures spotted in mirrors, tapping noises in the middle of nowhere. I never believed any of it. Not until I saw it with my own eyes. And once you see something like that, you never drive the same road the same way again. It was late November. I'd been driving for what felt like a lifetime. Just me, the hum of the engine, and a Radiohead playlist that had looped back to back. I needed food and some fuel. So when I saw a petrol station just off a side highway in northern Missouri, I pulled in, filled the rig, moved it around to the rear lot where other truckers usually park. Only this time, the lot was nearly empty. A few scattered cars, no semis, no signs of life. The lights above flickered and the windows were fogged from the inside. And even though it wasn't cold, I felt myself shiver. I told myself to ignore it and walked inside. I grabbed a coffee and a sandwich, my usuals, killed about 45 minutes before heading back to the truck. The moment I got behind the wheel, something felt off. I couldn't explain it. I just felt like I needed to leave, immediately. That's when I heard it. I scanned the road. There were no other vehicles in sight, just that tapping sound. I kept driving, convincing myself it was nothing. But then, this time, it was louder than before. I slowed down and opened the window. There was nothing outside. I drove for another 20 minutes before the sound returned. But this time, I knew where it came from. Inside the trailer. I was scared, but I pulled over, grabbed my flashlight, and walked around to the back. The clamp was busted. I felt my chest tighten. My hands were trembling, and I opened the doors. Everything looked fine. Boxes stacked, straps secured. No sign of movement. No one inside. Still, I reattached the clamp. Tight this time and got back in the truck. Maybe someone tried to break in and failed. Maybe they left. Maybe. I kept driving. But the longer I was on that road, the worse the feeling got. I started to feel like there was something behind me. So I stopped again. But this time I brought my gun. I walked to the trailer aiming and pulled the doors open. Nothing. Or so I thought. That's when I saw it, something slipping out from behind a row of crates. A shadow. It stood there, halfway hidden, watching me. I fired once, it missed. Fired again, still missed. And that's when the figure moved. Its shape flickered, like static on an old VHS tape. I fired again, but it was empty. I slammed the doors shaking, and I was completely terrified. Somehow I managed to call 911 and the cops came fast. I explained everything, from the tapping to the shadow. 2 officers stepped inside, and they searched for nearly 15 minutes. When they came out, one of them looked pale. They told me they hadn't found anyone, but they did find something else. A box near the back of the trailer, one I hadn't opened in months, which had a carving on it. The outline of a human body, with a throat slit, and the knife was still there, embedded in the wood like someone had stabbed the drawing into life. They tested it for fingerprints. There was nothing. No prints, no smudges. Not even mine. They told me it was probably some sick prank. But then, 2 weeks later, I heard it again. I couldn't bring myself to check. I just turned the music louder and drove until the sun came up. But every night since, I sleep with the gun in my lap. And every now and then, when the world is quiet, I swear I still hear it.
If you hear any tapping sounds or see something, or feel the road go colder while listening, you're not alone. So before your mirrors fog up, like, comment, and share it, because once you've heard it, it knows you have. And whatever you do, subscribe before midnight, because it's not the road you should be afraid of. It's what's been keeping pace beside you.
I used to believe that the worst things in life were the ones you could see. But now I know better. Because truly terrifying things aren't always visible. They're the ones that stalk you in silence. The ones that wait. The ones that follow you home. It started like any other haul. A 2-day solo run through a remote mountain range where cell service was off. No cars. No people. But that night, it felt different. I glanced at the clock and realized I was cutting it close. The sun was dropping fast, and I didn't want to be up there after dark. My gut told me to hurry, a deep instinct I've learned not to ignore. And that's when I saw it. I had stopped to take a piss. Normal stuff, but in the stillness, I noticed movement in the trees. Maybe 30 yards out. Big. Human-shaped. I thought maybe it was a hunter or a hiker. But the longer I looked, the more wrong it seemed. It stood like a man, but too tall, with limbs too long. Like they didn't know how to hold themselves upright. And its face wasn't a face. Then it ran. It just sprinted, tearing through the brush with impossible speed. I rushed towards my truck, heart pounding, barely slamming the door shut before it reached the clearing. I started my truck, and for a second, I glanced in the mirror. It was standing in the road, still as a statue, grinning. I don't know how long I drove. Could have been 10 minutes or an hour. Eventually, my heart slowed. Then I saw it again, on a cliff above the road, watching me. And just as my headlights passed, it leapt. I hit the gas hard, but the truck took its time picking up speed. In the side mirror, I saw it tearing down the slope, closing fast. It was about to jump onto the trailer when I took a sharp turn, way too fast, and the thing vanished into the trees. I thought I was lucky, but that turn was a mistake. The sign I'd followed, pointing to Main Road, had been bent. I'd gone deeper into the mountains without realizing it. By the time I pulled over and checked my map, my stomach dropped. I was lost, with no signal, no radio, and nowhere to turn around for miles. And when I looked up, there it was again, standing in the middle of the road. But this time, I got a real look. It was man-shaped for sure, but completely wrong. Its body was bulged, looking like something that had been stitched together from pieces that didn't belong. It then started to walk towards me. I slammed the locks and floored it, but it didn't stop. It then climbed onto the passenger step. I hit the door lock again, 1 second later, and that thing would have been in the cab with me. And that's when the pounding started. It started to strike the window, like it wanted to take me with it. I don't know why I did that, but I cracked the window, just a little. Immediately, its fingers came through. I screamed and rolled it back up, crushing them, and the thing howled, falling back onto the roadside. I didn't stop. I didn't look back. I just drove. Eventually, the road reconnected to the main road. Other cars, cell signal, radio. Then I called my boss and told him everything. He didn't believe me at all. Instead, he told me to take a few days off. I slept for 16 hours straight when I got home after that. But now, every night before bed, I check the windows. Because sometimes, when the road outside is quiet and the wind dies down, I get the feeling that something's still out there, just standing in the trees, waiting. I wasn't always like this. I didn't always stare out the window expecting to see something that isn't there. I didn't always jump at every little sound. I didn't always drink just to fall asleep, or stay awake because I was too scared to close my eyes. I used to be normal, like everyone else. I believed in facts, in science, in reason. I thought ghost stories were just that. Stories, but not anymore. Now I know what fear really feels like, and I can't keep this one inside anymore. I've been a truck driver most of my life. Long routes, quiet roads, no people, no noise, just the sound of the tires and the radio. I used to love it, being alone with my thoughts, just me and the road. But one night changed everything. It was a late-night haul through a deep valley. There were no towns, no traffic, not even stars in the sky. It was just complete darkness. My radio was full of static, and I was so tired I felt like I was driving in a dream. And then I saw him, right in the middle of the road, a person just standing there. I tried to hit the brakes. I swear I did. But my foot wouldn't move. I was frozen. I watched as the truck sped forward. And then, nothing. No crash. No sound. No body. It was like he was never there. How's that possible? I started to panic, but I didn't stop. I didn't look back. I just kept driving into the dark. And a few hours later, I couldn't keep going. My eyes were heavy, and I knew I had to rest. I pulled over, climbed into the back, and passed out. But what came next was worse than anything I'd seen. I had a nightmare. I was standing alone in the mountains. The sky was deep red like it was bleeding. I could hear a sound growing louder, a pounding, like something massive was stomping towards me. Then the ground shook. Now the pounding turned to banging, and I woke up in a panic. Except the sound hadn't stopped. The banging was real. It was coming from outside the truck, like someone was slamming their fists against the metal. I grabbed my gun and peeked out the window. There was someone standing outside. I couldn't see his face, just the shape. He was tall, leaning slightly like he wasn't built quite right. I aimed my gun at the window, and then he was gone. I jumped into the driver's seat and took off. I didn't care where I was going. I just wanted to be away from that place. And when the sun finally came up, I felt safe again. I pulled into a gas station, stepped out of the cab, and tried to forget the whole thing. But still, I was shaking. And then, I saw it. 4 words, scratched deep into the side of my truck. You will never rest. I've been a long-haul trucker most of my life, and I've seen some strange stuff out on the road. But nothing like what happened that night on the edge of Utah, just before crossing into Nevada. It was late, and I had to stop to update my logbooks before I hit the border. That's when I found a rest area, a lonely little pull-off sitting on top of a ridge. Just the whole desert and the sky. There were no lights, no cars, and not even a single sound. I felt the kind of silence that feels like it's listening to you. I climbed into the sleeper to update my logs. There was nothing unusual, but about halfway through writing, I felt something. You know that feeling when someone's watching you? Like their stare is crawling up your spine? That presence. At first, I thought I was just tired. Paranoia, maybe. But when I looked up, I saw someone standing there. An old man. He was out there just standing in the sand, maybe 20 feet from my truck. Long gray beard, ragged clothes, no shoes, no motion, just watching me. I rolled down the window and asked,
You okay out there?
There was no answer. I tried again.
Hey, you all right? You need some water?
Still nothing. Not even a word. Not a blink. I stood up on the step, not fully out of the cab, but closer, and then asked.
I'm not coming down there, old man. If you need help, you gotta come over here.
But he didn't move. He just kept staring. I felt like he was staring at my soul, like he was carved out of the desert. I felt my stomach twist. Something was wrong with this. So I got back in, shut the door, put it in gear, and started to roll out. And that's when it happened. He moved. He started walking alongside my truck. Slow at first, and then he started keeping up his pace. But then I sped up, just a little. Then he sped up too. So I pushed the pedal harder, trying to merge back onto the highway. And I glanced to the side, ready to yell at him to back off. But he was gone. Vanished. Except he wasn't. Because in his place, right there beside my window, was a coyote, running full speed next to my truck. Eyes locked on me. I swear to God, it was like he had been there the whole time. That thing kept pace with me for at least 2 blocks. And the worst part? When I finally pulled ahead, I didn't dare look in the rearview mirror. I didn't want to know if he was still there. I was scared. But I kept driving, mile after mile, telling myself it was over. But just before dawn, my radio crackled, all on its own. There was no signal, no station, just static, and a voice.
Next time, don't stop.
Then silence. Dead air. There was no one else around for 100 miles, and I didn't touch that dial the rest of the way home. And now, I don't stop in the desert. Not even for gas. Not even for God.